Thanks to popular demand, I'm back on P5R when I should be finishing Reload, cause damn, you guys sure as hell love this one. Today I'll be taking on the Picaro boss again. If you don't know what that is, basically it's a modded boss fight consisting of Aegis, Yu Narukami, Joker, and Makoto Yuki. It's a really tough boss fight at that. If you want to know more about it, please check out this video as I go into more detail about how it works. As promised, I said I would do this boss solo, so that's what I'm gonna do today. As for the rules, I'm taking them off. For those who saw the last video, you know how bullshit this boss is. Joker using Phantom Show, Checkmate, Neo Cadenza, and Myriad Truce? Makoto having Life Wall, Concentrate, and Door of Hades? You having Brainwash, Hasao Tobi, Myriad Truce, and High Energy, which literally gives Concentrate to everyone. I guess having Akashic Arts, Titanomachia, and Forget? Yeah, no, not this time, pal. Izanagi Got No Hose Okami is coming out for this one, as well as Raoul. I am going full cheese mode on this. I am one freaking Joker with one turn before I get attacked 4 different times by each of these super bosses, which can easily kill me if they bounce off each other the right way, and they certainly plan to. If you are against it, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to spend 2 hours fighting 4 super bosses that can debuff me, hit me with status ailments, nuke me, and block all of my attacks. I'm only human, after all. That said, my setup isn't much different from the last video, but just in case you haven't seen the first video, I'll briefly explain what personas I use. But before that, I'd like to talk about 2 interesting comments that were made in the last video. This guy says, "This fight was literally a cakewalk with teammates since technical damage is broken. Trying to do this solo is a completely different experience. While yes, technical damage is broken, I think you are severely underestimating how easy DLC can make this boss. Izanagi no Okami is the strongest persona in the game, with the strongest trait on top of that. Nuking this boss is a cakewalk with Phantom Show, which has a really high chance to land over Lullaby. And I didn't even have Sleep Boost for Lilim, which makes the chances of landing Sleep a lot lower. Foul Odor does give it a higher chance to land after a baton pass, but that is situational to begin with. And second, Morningstar does not compare to the power of Myriad Truce, making the fight last longer, and the longer this fight goes, the easier it is to die. This fight ain't no cakewalk, especially without DLC. With DLC now, I think I could take this boss more fairly in my favor, while not having to rely heavily on RNG, which isn't in my favor to begin with." Another comment said, "Correct me if I'm wrong as I haven't played P5R in a long while, but isn't hard difficulty actually harder than Merciless?" I thought this was the craziest comment of all time, but upon further research and testing if this is actually true, while the damage you take in Merciless is 3 times higher than other difficulties, the damage you do is also multiplied by 3, so that kinda cancels it out in terms of nuking bosses instead of getting nuked yourself. So for that reason, for this boss I'll be doing this on hard mode, so I can't just 2-shot the bosses, hopefully, with Myriad Truce. With that out of the way, let's get into the setup. First off, since this boss does a ton of damage, I need to nullify as much damage as possible, so a lot of my personas have resistances to most elements. Starting with the Boogeyman, Izanagi no Scare the Hose Away, he has what you would expect from him: damage buffs, Myriad Truce, and nullifications to bless and curse damage. He also has Firm Stance, and since I have the Persona Compendium at 100%, it'll make my defense absolutely nuts. Stack this with Heat Riser, and don't be surprised when I take double-digit damage. Next is Raoul, who is just used for Phantom Show and nothing else. He can be a do or die persona because his defense is a bit on the lower side, and he doesn't have many resistances. So if the move doesn't work, then there's a good chance I'll take some heavy damage. The rest of the personas are just there so I could safely buff myself while taking as little damage as possible. Almighty will still hurt a lot since there's no resistance to it. And finally I will have Maria to heal me if needed. Most likely not, since I'd prefer to use items to heal since I can stick to a persona with higher defense and resistances. With that out of the way, I have the best armor and weapons equipped, and I have LeBlanc's Charm to nullify sleep, which Joker will use on me, and I'd rather avoid that risk. Now it's time to go into this boss, hopefully one last time, and spend 2 hours of my life trying not to die.
Will you be able to overcome this foe?
I know I'm stating the obvious here, but since this is a 1v4, every turn I have has to be carefully considered, and honestly the pattern is going to be repetitive. Unfortunately, there's not much of a choice here because it's insanely hard to predict what these bosses will do each turn. Buffing themselves, debuffing me, putting up barriers, trying to land status ailments, preparing to nuke me for next turn, hell, even healing! I just made it sound way less than it actually is, but that's still a sane amount of abilities they can use. No other boss in Persona can do all of this to the level that these assholes can. Since I started with Alalat, my stats are already buffed, All I can do now is use Concentrate, then be ready to Phantom Show or possibly debuff them the next turn. They don't start off too crazy aside from Aigis buffing their defense and Makoto also debuffing my attack. I sometimes try to remove their debuffs since I want to do as much damage as possible so I can get rid of their first lives. Sometimes I'll also use Heat Riser just to keep my stats up in case of a nuke coming up. Otherwise the pattern is just Heat Riser, Concentrate, Phantom Show, Myriad Deaths. You'd think this would be super easy, but the hiccups in this pattern can come up a lot. Getting hit with a status ailment and not having Detox remove it can waste a turn or two, especially if it's something like Brainwash. That could end up with me having to buff myself again, or getting nuked myself in the process, which delays this fight even more, and gives me an even higher chance of dying, since I have to either buff myself again, or heal. This gets even worse when they use Makarakarn or Life Wall on themselves, since it repels magic attacks. I didn't even know this before, but Phantom Show can also be repelled when the barrier is up, so I have to waste another turn to remove their barrier. Sometimes even 2 turns since I have to use Concentrate again to get the most out of Myriad Truths. But when the Boogeyman hits the funny $5 move, there's no better feeling I get than hitting these fucking dickheads and watching their health bar deplete so fast. Unfortunately, the feeling can be really short-lived because of Joker using Neo fucking Cadenza to buff and heal over 10k HP for all of them. This is even more annoying on hard mode because the damage Myriad Truths does to them is just instantly erased, on top of them already getting back 2000 health when they get put to sleep to begin with. It really drags this fight on. I can't stress this enough. These fights were taking over 2 hours for a single run. At the very least, I can get rid of their buffs with Dakunda and items if I really feel like it. Sometimes it's just not worth it though. While I did have my fair share of bad luck getting hit by status ailments, I also got a ton of good luck because I dodged a few nukes like Makoto using Door of Hades. There were also times that Phantom Show didn't put them all to sleep, which is a pain, but it's not the worst. Any damage I can do to get them closer to death is good damage. Unfortunately, the luck aspect is what makes or breaks this fight. There wasn't any way around it for me, because the worst possible thing happened to me during one of my runs. I was 2 hours into the fight. I had my attack and defense buffed, but since I had Odin, I knew I couldn't get hit by almost everything. So I just said screw it, I'll use Concentrate and wait the debuff out. God had other plans though. Because for no fucking reason at all, with no crit buff or anything, this dickhead somehow lands one-shot kill on a crit for 3152 damage and one-shots me. I was ready to give up when I saw this, but I had to do it for the content, so I started again. After a few more terrible runs, I finally came across an opportunity. Everyone was low and I managed to take out Yu and Aigis. With both my SP and HP low, I needed to restore both of them somehow if I wanted to end this fight quicker. I could have sworn there was an item that fully restored both. Let me check my notes. It's an item that you never unironically need to use in this game. Oh right, a Soma! I actually had 3 of them before this fight, but as the fight went on and I kept getting nuked, I was burning through my SP really fast, so I ended up having to use all of them. Again, fair game considering all the bullshit I have to deal with. From there it was just buffing myself again and nuking Makoto and Joker. Once the nuke hits, well, it was only a matter of time.
By the Myriad Truths!
My oh my.
There you have it, the full Picaro boss, done solo on what I believe is the hardest difficulty. I'm sorry if this strat was lame, but honestly, with the shit they can do, I believe running DLC against the characters who also use the same bullshit as you is perfectly fair. Yes, I know their personas don't take into account persona traits, which is the only reason Izanagi no Okami does so much damage to begin with. It doesn't change the fact that I can still get 1 or 2 shotted by this boss. If you really want me to do a solo run without DLC and items, you gotta be a sick person, and I'm not doing that. But if you want more Persona content, like reload videos or playthrough of P5R, subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.